Beerus is no longer the god of destruction of Universe 7, but calm down, I will explain all of this to you now. The role of Hakaishin, or God of Destruction, is one of the most enigmatic and significant roles within the Dragon Ball Super universe. Unlike hereditary titles or innate powers, the God of Destruction is a role that can be assigned, trained, and even passed on. This nature gives the role institutional and cosmic weight within the multiverse created by Akira Toriyama, especially when we consider that characters like Beerus were not born with the energy of destruction, but were trained for it, which completely changes the perspective on divinity within the work. Beerus, the god of destruction of Universe 7, is constantly seen as a feared and respected deity for his absolute power to erase anything from existence. However, few realize the fact that he was not born with this power. He was taught by Whis, the angel assigned to train and guide him, demonstrating that the energy of destruction is not an ability exclusive to a race or divine lineage, but rather a technique, an art, and above all, a responsibility. This creates a very clear separation between power and purpose. The god of destruction is someone shaped to destroy, but not out of malice or selfishness, but rather to maintain the balance of the universe. This factor also helps us understand why Whis once offered the position of god of destruction to Goku. He did not ask if Goku wanted to be a god, but rather if he wanted to take on the position, with all the implications that this entails. Goku refused the proposal, something perfectly consistent with his personality. He is someone who seeks challenges and self-improvement for pleasure and warrior instinct, not out of a sense of cosmic responsibility. Being a god of destruction would mean submitting to a bureaucratic and functional role within the structure of the universe, something that clearly does not match the freedom that Goku values so much. But Goku's refusal doesn't end the debate. In Dragon Ball Super Hero, Beerus mentions this possibility again, saying that if Goku surpasses him, he could become the new god of destruction. This is extremely revealing as it makes it clear that the position of god of destruction is indeed passable. The condition imposed by Beerus to be more powerful than him suggests that power is a prerequisite, but not the only one. The candidate for the position must also have maturity, emotional control, and an understanding of universal balance. Destroying for the sake of destruction does not make a god of destruction. Destruction in this context is a form of maintenance. This idea resonates with what we saw in the Tournament of Power, especially with the introduction of the other gods of destruction from the other universes. Each one has a unique personality, a different approach to how to apply destruction. Some are more impulsive, others more analytical, but they all share one thing in common. They were designated to destroy with purpose. This strengthens the thesis that being a god of destruction is an occupation, a function on a universal scale that requires mastery over the energy of destruction, yes, but also discernment and commitment to the rules of the cosmos. Whis, as an angel and mentor, is the one who holds the knowledge necessary to shape a candidate for the position. This means that, theoretically, any being with potential could be trained to become a god of destruction, as long as they meet the requirements imposed by the system itself. It is worth remembering that Whis is impartial, as every angel should be, and this includes being willing to train someone who can replace Beerus in case the current god of destruction is no longer suitable or wishes to retire. In this sense, Goku, Vegeta, or even another warrior could take this position. Vegeta, in fact, is a name that has gained more and more relevance in this context. By embracing the philosophy of Ultra Ego, a form taught by Beerus and based on the energy of destruction, Vegeta comes closer, ideologically and technically, to what it means to be a god of destruction. Unlike Goku, who prefers freedom and the Ultra Instinct technique, Vegeta is following a path that connects him directly with destruction as a concept, something that could make him the true heir to the position if Beerus decides to step away in the future. This contrast between Goku and Vegeta is interesting because it places the two at complementary ends of the divine spectrum. Goku represents freedom, pure instinct, and the defense of life, while Vegeta increasingly represents the acceptance of duty, the rational use of destruction, and the weight of cosmic decisions. It is no exaggeration to think that the Dragon Ball multiverse itself is moving towards a new organization where Goku and Vegeta are not just powerful warriors, but divine figures with clear functions within the maintenance of universal balance. Another point worth highlighting is how the existence of the God of Destruction position transforms our understanding of divinity in Dragon Ball. The series has always had a peculiar approach to gods, from the Kami-sama of Earth to the Kaioshins and the angels themselves. But the God of Destruction is perhaps the only one whose power is acquired and perfected as a technique. This paradoxically makes him more accessible and more sacred, as it places destruction as a science, something that can be taught and therefore needs to be treated with even greater responsibility. Goku's refusal to take the position can be seen not as weakness but as proof of his maturity. He understands that he was not made to destroy on purpose, but rather to fight, protect, and test his limits. Goku is a warrior, not a balance keeper. Therefore, his rejection reinforces the importance of understanding the role of God of Destruction, not as an honorific title, but as a function that must be accepted with full understanding of what it means to erase entire lives and realities for the greater good. If Beerus is ever replaced, and this is inevitable given the cycle of creation and destruction that governs the universes, the successor will have to carry more than power. He will have to carry responsibility, rationality, and purpose. Whether it is Vegeta, Broly, or even a new character, the next god of destruction will have to understand that destruction is not just an act of strength, but an act of wisdom. Thus, the role of God of Destruction reveals itself as one of the richest and most philosophical elements of Dragon Ball Super, as it discusses not only power but also destiny, structure, and morality. In a universe where everyone seeks to evolve, perhaps true evolution lies in understanding when not to fight, but to destroy with awareness. If we assume that the position of God of Destruction is a function and not an immutable divine inheritance, then it is natural to assume that at some point, Beerus will cease to occupy it, whether by his own will, by exhaustion of his vital energy, or by some more impactful narrative consequence such as his death. Universe 7 will inevitably need a new god of destruction. This need, combined with the fact that the universal system requires a balance between creation and destruction, makes it impossible for the position to remain vacant for long. And that is where Vegeta comes in, not only as a logical successor, but as an ideal successor. Since he began training with Beerus, Vegeta has undergone a transformation that goes beyond the physical. Unlike the destructive pride that characterized him in the Z Saga, he began to understand the real meaning of destruction as a cosmic necessity and not as a simple expression of power. The philosophy behind Ultra Ego, which he himself has mastered, is already a psychological preparation for what it means to be a god of destruction. Vegeta does not destroy to prove his strength, he destroys as a response to chaos, as a tool for reconstruction. This is deeply aligned with the original concept of the role. Beerus himself has shown, at various times, that he recognizes this change in Vegeta. If with Goku, he sees a destructive potential limited by a pure heart, with Vegeta, he sees a warrior who, although still attached to his family and emotional ties, is capable of making colder and more strategic decisions. Vegeta understands the pain of loss, the weight of regret, and the burden of responsibility. And all of this makes him the type of entity who would not destroy on impulse but out of conviction, exactly as a god of destruction should act. If Beerus dies, and this, for narrative purposes, is an event that could have a huge impact on the story, Universe 7 cannot simply wait for the position to fill itself. The balance between the gods is delicate. With the disappearance of a god of destruction, the angel accompanying him becomes inactive. The universe begins to lose stability, and Zeno-sama himself may consider the universe as incomplete. This type of potential threat makes the appointment of a replacement not optional, but urgent. And at this point, Whis would already have someone ready, Vegeta. More than that, it is important to note that Whis has already trained Vegeta with exactly this goal in mind. He shaped his mind, his body, and his ki to bear the burden of destruction. Living with Beerus was not only a preparation to face more powerful enemies, but also a way to insert him into the divine context, to test him in situations in which he needed to control his anger, act logically, and ponder before destroying. And even when faced with villains like Granola and Gas, Vegeta demonstrated this maturity. He refused to follow the easy path of brutality and preferred to explore the true potential of Ultra Ego, which demands sacrifice and pain. Vegeta, unlike Goku, never refused the idea of assuming the role of a god. Although he is also a warrior who values pride and defiance, he has a much sharper sense of duty. When Whis offered Goku the chance to be the next god of destruction, Goku refused without thinking twice. But if the same offer were made to Vegeta, especially at a time when Beerus was no longer present, it is almost certain that he would accept, not out of vanity, but out of honor, because he understands that the universe needs someone to maintain balance and that he is ready to be that someone. Beerus' death would also represent a symbolic and poetic conclusion to Vegeta's arc. After all, Beerus was responsible, directly or indirectly, for much of Vegeta's initial humiliation in Dragon Ball Super. It was he who forced him to recognize his inferiority upon his arrival on Earth, who challenged him to go beyond his pride and seek real strength. Taking Beerus's place would be like closing a cycle where the Prince of the Saiyans finally surpasses not only his master, but also the limits of his own nature. He would stop being a warrior and become a god by merit, not by birth. It is possible that the narrative itself is already leading us towards this destiny. In recent arcs, Vegeta has had a growing silent protagonism. While Goku loses himself in his own desires for self-improvement and constant training, Vegeta is molding himself into someone more pragmatic, more connected to duty. Beerus's absence would be the ideal trigger for this final development. There would be no one left to guide or correct him, and he would have to rely solely on everything he has learned. This is the kind of challenge that Vegeta, more than any other character, is ready to face. From a structural point of view, replacing Beerus with Vegeta would also bring fascinating new dynamics to the work. As God of Destruction, Vegeta would have authority over universal decisions, access to previously unattainable powers and knowledge, and above all, he would have the chance to represent his people, the Saiyans, as a race that evolved from brutality to wisdom. He would be living proof that even a warrior shaped to kill can become an agent of cosmic balance. Another important factor is the impact this would have on the relationships between the characters. Goku would continue as the defender of freedom and overcoming, while Vegeta would become the pillar of order. This would create an interesting and necessary contrast, establishing two complementary forces within Universe 7, instinct and responsibility. Vegeta would not need to abandon his family or his ties to Earth. On the contrary, he could protect them even more effectively as a god. The figure of a god of destruction does not require isolation, only commitment to his role. And although the god of destruction's role is essentially about destruction, its true function is to allow creation to flourish. By destroying what is corrupt, the god of destruction paves the way for the new. Vegeta, having understood this, would be the destroyer who makes room for hope. His journey from cruel villain to honorable warrior would be complete with this transition, and Universe 7 would not only gain a new god of destruction, but the best it could have. Thus, Beerus's death would not be the end, but the beginning of a new era, an era where destruction is carried out by someone who knows pain, values justice, and knows, better than anyone, what it means to lose everything. Vegeta would inherit not just a title, but the mission of ensuring that Universe 7 remains in balance, and this time under the rule of a god who knows exactly what it is to be mortal. With the imminent rise of Black Frieza as the new great threat of the multiverse, the possibility of Beerus's death adds a dramatic and unpredictable layer to the saga, further increasing its narrative potential. Frieza has already proven that he is no longer the same tyrant as before. He now possesses strategic intellect, combat discipline, and a power that surpassed even Goku and Vegeta at their most advanced levels. If he decides to target the gods directly, Beerus's death would not only leave Universe 7 vulnerable, but would also represent an unprecedented break in the divine structure. This is why the Black Frieza saga promises to be one of the most impactful in the entire franchise, not only for increasing the danger, but for bringing real, profound, and transformative consequences, such as the inevitable emergence of a new god of destruction. But comment on what you thought of all this, and don't forget to like. Thank you very much for all your support, and see you next time.